G'day, ajmahari here. Well, I was trying to get on for the longest time. Tried like about an hour. Nothing but technical difficulties. YouTube is overloaded or something. So yeah, the topic is borderline personality. Okay, so can you be friends after a breakup? Or what goes on with people who have BPD and people who try to be their friends, or who become that not good place to be favorite person? So I'm certainly not somebody who advocates that people should be friends with a borderline ex. And I don't know what's really going on with this for many people, but I think a lot of people have tried to do this. And, to what degree of success or not, well, my work for 30 years with people suggests that not much success, or it doesn't really work out. And people need to really think about it, especially if you're thinking about an ex, right? Or somebody who's just becoming an ex, or maybe you're just trying to get yourself out of that relationship now. It can be so, even when people try to be friends after healthy relationships, it can be so complicated for so many reasons, right? But it can also be something really denies you the ability to be able to take care of yourself, to be able to really find your healing and recovery journey that you deserve and that you are so incredibly worth. And so I think this is like a really interesting subject because it's one that is so compelling for people, right? And even people in other relationship types like family with BPD or a parent with BPD. And it's not just about friendship with family, then, is it? But like in a way, that question could be asked too. Can you be friends with a sibling with BPD? Can you stay friends or have a healthy interaction type relationship with a parent with BPD? And you know what? For so many people, the answer is no there too, sadly enough. But so, how do people think that it could work with an ex with BPD? And again, my biggest concern for people who might be thinking about this, and I'd love to know what people think about it in general, is the fact that you could be people that try to be friends with an ex who have codependency are still going to block their healing and recovery journey, still going to get in your way, slow you down, or block you from that precious healing and recovery journey wherein you get to know you so much better. You get to change your life. And I don't mean to say this against anybody with BPD, right? But people with BPD in a relational sense, more often than not, unless until recovery, really, because even midway, hard to say, but everybody's different with BPD. But for the vast majority, they're not able to do friendship that much better or better at all than relationships. The same things happen. And even with their quote, coveted, quote, favorite person, unquote. So again, I'm speaking in generalities here, but with the majority of untreated people with BPD for sure, and I work with a lot of people with BPD, and they're getting more self-aware all the time in the process of their healing and recovery journey. But guess what is shared with me multiple times from people with BPD that I help in their recovery from BPD? As they become more aware, they're like, wow, I had to leave every relationship. I had to like go no contact. I just ghosted friends. I ghosted people. I didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't think, like I didn't know what hurt them, or people have put it many different ways. But I think this is a really challenging thing for so many people after these relationships. And it's really unwise because people with BPD need to be in their own healing and recovery journey. And some people, so many out there, will never choose it. And that's really sad and tragic. But the thing is, so haven't you, I would ask the question, if you have tried this, if you're considering it, or if it's a family member, like I said, or it's a cousin, or it's somebody that you were, do you know, I were, you were friends with, sorry, I should finish the sentence. But do you know how many clients I've actually had come to me because they had a friendship for like maybe a couple of years, maybe longer than that in their lives with a friend who they didn't know had BPD, who had BPD, and they went through all kinds of pain and agony on the other side of a friend with BPD that they never were romantically involved with. And I've had people just devastated by how these friendships alone with people with BPD crack up, break up, fall apart, really wound and devastate people as well. And so I think it's really important that people try to resist any kind of attempts at this, or if you're somebody who's already been involved in this or you're trying it right now, I wonder if anybody has anything to say about it. If anybody stays here long enough, people are popping in and out. But the thing is, this is crucial because it doesn't just go to that partner or that ex or that off and on again ex with BPD, whether or not you can be friends, and how unhealthy that will be for you and how much that will block your own healing and recovery. But it goes more to the point to other types of relationships too. Like if you have a parent with BPD, if you have a sibling with BPD, if you have a relative, a cousin, or maybe like all three with BPD in your family of origin, or even people that are just friends and never were romantically involved. Friendship with people with BPD with many people with BPD, can be as devastating as is a relationship, a significant other relationship. And so trying to remain friends after not only a significant other relationship, a romantic relationship, but even after being raised by a mother with BPD, or my mother was BPD NPD, but I don't want to know her anymore. I haven't known her for 32 plus years. I don't miss not knowing her because there was nobody home to know. So it's crucial that when people think about this, realize all the other relationship types, that broaden out into this, well, can I be friends, or can I maintain, a sibling relationship? Can I maintain relationship to parent? In adult parents in the 25% of adult children with BPD, of course, want to maintain a relationship with their adult child. But even then, sometimes some parents have to just go their own way because their other kids and or marriages get just decimated by this. And so all these different relationship types of trying to relate to a person with BPD, whether it's an ex or not, or a family member, but can you even find the relational ability for friendship, or trying to love someone as a friend, let alone an ex, but in all these other relationship types? And hey there, I don't know how to, Avel, is it, I could say? You said, hi there, you recently responded to my comment. I dated a BPD bipolar man for 4 months. Then the rage came out. I ended it. Well, good for you for ending it when you saw the rage come out and stuff. We work together and attend a small church, so I have to see him weekly. Oh, well, how are you coping with that? Because that would go directly to this question, because you have proximity that you still share. I wonder if you're trying to work at being a friend, or if you realize maybe that might not work. The Samaritan. What would your advice be for those of us who are co-parenting with them? Keep your boundaries up, I guess. Well, yes, and it depends on the co-parenting arrangement, if it was laid out by a court, a mediator, or somehow agreed upon. But what I would suggest there is that you have to be essentially emotionally no contact with that person with BPD or that ex with BPD, except for communication about the children and only the children. And often they won't be able to uphold those boundaries. But so it's like you're co-parenting. There might be times when there needs to be communication about the children, situations, pickups, drop-offs, what's happening, etc. But how to keep it depends on if you've got any court order in place and something else that, can be enforced. But when you're co-parenting, it's really important to keep strict boundaries, yes, and to not, so you need to detach from any communication that isn't strictly about the children and the co-parenting aspect of the children, right? Because often people will no court, okay. Often people will step out of, with BPD, they'll keep trying to run past that boundary. So I wonder, how's that working for you, the Samaritan, when it's not court ordered? So has there been any, quote, cooperation, or is that like an on-off thing? Because if you'd care to share a little bit, that might help me to have more to say to you. Abel, he asked me to be friends. It's really hard for me to do that, especially since one, I'm not sure what KO, after the breakup, he started redating his ex, and they sit right in front of me. Well, yes, and I mean, if you were going to be friends, but see, you haven't really healed from the relationship, it sounds like, right? Which takes time and a recovery process. So if you were going to be friends, then you would have to be obviously more healed, recovered, more time gone by, so that him dating somebody else wouldn't matter. But I hear you. And I think too that what was I going to say? Having to be, this happens to a lot of people who are coworkers, right? Having to be in the same office environment, again, there needs to probably be a detachment. And I mean, if you have to just give a cordial hello or something, but maybe you don't, depending how closely you work together, really you need to detach and you need to keep those boundaries up high. And almost really, some people cope with just forgetting they're there, which can take some time and work on its own. And Abel, I really did see a future with him, but he needs help. Yes, definitely. And he's currently in counseling and got on meds. Well, of course, meds don't help, but the counseling, hey, it's good that he's going, but that will take years, even if it goes absolutely the best it possibly could, right? And you said, but the fact he moved on so quick, I feel betrayed. Well, naturally you do, and that's understandable. But don't forget that you need time to heal. And I don't know if you realize or identify as being a person with codependency, but you have some work to do on you, and you need to get to know you better. So, he did move on quickly, but so the friend zone, I don't think that's going to be very healthy for you because it could block your healing and recovery. And yes, you've been hurt. And I don't know, but personally, I wouldn't advocate people try to be friends with an ex, even when you do see each other at church and I think also at work, if I'm understanding correctly. Hey there, Rob. You said, hi, a friendship will not work. Ah, yes. I tried it, and it led to more heartbreak and push-pull constantly. Also trying to make me jealous, and then I'll be triggered again. No contact is the only way. Well, thank you for sharing your experience, Rob, because I think that's the experience of more people than not who try to be friends with a BPD Ex. And I'm really sorry to hear that happened to you, though. And I wonder, if you care to share, how long did it take you to realize that, it was just getting more painful or as painful? And Abel, he asked me to be friends. I don't understand why. He has a girlfriend. Um, well, it's been about a month, eh? Well, because he's basically essentially it's like they ask to have their cake and eat it too, right? Because it's an object constancy issue, because he probably hasn't fully got the new girlfriend as the object other quite yet. But this is vacillation and wanting to have you in one role, friend now, when it didn't work out in the relationship, and he's going to make the same mistakes and go through the same, with the next person. It's just not tenable. It's just not healthy for people to entertain that, because what about you? You need to focus on you. You need to focus on your recovery. He's just really emotionally immature, doesn't understand how he affected you, how he hurt you. He doesn't get it. He's not going to be thinking about you. So nothing has changed because you're now exes in him that would mean that he would see you or hear you or care about your feelings, because he's all about his own feelings. And I don't mean that he's a narcissist, but that's the way they are. That's the way they operate. They're trying to get their own needs met all the time. So, it sounds like a really difficult situation to navigate, but not one that you should try to be friends with him in. Hi there, Roller Girl. How are you tonight? Abel, yes, thank you very much. Well, I think it's really important, and I'm sure it's equally as difficult for you right now, especially when you have to see him in two different places. But again, you have to think about how you feel and that you still need to heal and work on recovery and work on why, and not that it's your fault, but why you ended up with a cluster B so that you can not do that again, right? So trying to be his friend would be you abandoning yourself all over again. The Samaritan. On and off cooperation, yes. Right now, I mostly communicate with his family when arranging drop offs, etc., just because it's easier, safer emotionally, and less conflict. Well, that sounds like a great idea. Because often, when things do go to court, what some people will have to ask for and do get is that when there's, if it's shared custody or visitation, whatever it is, then a third party, is the place where a child or children are dropped off and then picked up. And maybe you can work that if you feel it's necessary, it would be helpful to you to work it so you drop the children off at his family, and his family, he drops them off there too, and then you go pick them up. Because it's really important that if there's on and off cooperation, great. But I don't know how you feel about what I said about that boundary and detachment, that you don't want to communicate with this person about anything but the children. And I don't know if he's pushed that boundary on you or not. But it sounds like if you have some, but I think the reality that you're taking the kids to his family and arranging drop-offs, hopefully that's going both ways. And you said easier, but yes, safer emotionally. And it's best for you and the kids, and him too probably, but he probably causes conflict. Best to have the least amount of conflict possible, so that it's really safe for your child or children as well. And then of course they might not feel as safe with him, as, but who knows. But yeah, so I think it's great that you have that going on, and I hope it's going both ways. Because really, when co-parenting with somebody, an ex with BPD, it's super important not to be in the friend zone, because you have to have those clear boundaries. Like, I'm only talking to you, the ex, right? I'm only going to talk about the co-parenting and the kids, right? Because otherwise your life is yours and it has to be separate, to be really healthy and to go forward in your own healing and what you need in your life. And Rob said, it took me a good year and a half of this, some distance, and then the pull again. Yes, and this is when you were trying to be friends with your ex, right? And also, she knew I was not over it, and they loved to feed off the attention. When I distanced, she said something flirty. Wow, I'm sorry to hear that, because yes, a lot of people with BPD would definitely take advantage of that situation. And I would say in that situation, that's not something they do unknowingly either. And then Robbie said, and then I was hooked and couldn't let go. Right, and so it sounds like from what you're sharing, Rob, that it took you a good year and a half of this trying to be in the quote friend zone, being friends with the ex, but you really weren't over her. So that must have put you really in a vulnerable place, that she would have taken advantage of at least to one degree or another. And then she's breaking the boundary of the friendship in the sense that she's being flirty. I'm really sorry to hear that. And that's another reason why I hope people maybe on the stream now, if depending on your experience, or people listening back, will listen to what Rab just said and what Rab's been through. Because I'm sorry you went through that, Rab, and I'm sure you weren't over her. And that's another good question for people to ask themselves. Why am I even entertaining, if you are? Why am I even thinking it would be a good idea to be friends with my ex? Because maybe, Rab, the real reason that you tried that is because you weren't over her, which is understandable, right? But which is only going to lead to more heartbreak, and can block people's recovery. Narietta's Kitty Cats, that's a cute name. I have an ex-husband that has been diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Oh, and I wonder, do you think it's just bipolar? Because often they seem to be mixing these things up, or apparently a lot of people have both these days. I don't know what that's about. Roller Girl, I'm okay. Another day in quarantine with BPD NPD boyfriend. Oh, you have my deepest sympathy, empathy, compassion. Everything we talk about is a trigger. Last week was good. Well, I'm glad at least once in a blue moon it's good. This week he's back to being his usual antagonistic self, or antagonist self. So sorry to hear that. Because, it's one thing to have a BPD NPD boyfriend. Hopefully you're going to think about what that means for you, etc. But it's another thing to be quarantined with them. And I don't know where you live, but some of the quarantines and things have opened up a little, and you might want to think about, do you want to try to change, maybe not stay in this relationship, before, like, because I believe in the fall things are going to slam shut again. And we don't know for sure, but they could well, if not before that. And then the thing is, then you might be in for a long period of time where you're stuck with this person. So something to think about, because I certainly don't know your situation, right? And Maria's Kid Cats. Right now, my ex-husband that has bipolar is in prison. Oh, well, I mean, that's different. I mean, I was going to say sorry in a sense, but then who knows what he did, right? So I don't want to, I don't know what to say to that right now. And then you said my ex-husband went to prison because he got so upset at the mental hospital that, oh, he attacked a nurse, a doctor, and seriously hurt a police officer. Well, and do they think that that was in a bipolar episode of something, or do they think maybe it's not just bipolar? Would be hard to say what would have precipitated that, right? And I don't know if you want to say, but how long is he? Oh, you said my ex-husband has a very scary, dangerous temper. Well, yeah, yeah. So you're not thinking about trying to be friends, are you? Because like that would be a good reason not to try to be friends. Don't know how long he's going to be in prison for, but and tired. I'll just use the word tired there because the AI won't like the rest of your name, but that's a cool name. A friendship could not and will not work with my BPD Ex as well. I've tried that, and I felt like a kite in a whirlwind for 3 years. I'm so sorry to hear that. I've gone no contact for a month, and I finally feel some clarity. Oh, well, good for you. And I mean, even in just 1 month, feeling some clarity must speak volumes to the fact that you now know, you tried something. Nothing wrong with that, right? Sometimes people have to try, but now you're saying like it really doesn't work. And it was a whirlwind for 3 years. Wow, that's a long time. I really have compassion for you, and thank you for sharing that because it will help other people who listen back to the stream and who might be like on the edge, like I want to try this, but I don't know if I should, and obviously like it's not something that I would recommend, but people do, I understand totally why, lots of people think it can work. And then lo and behold, it usually doesn't work and it usually is just as painful. And I just want to say a lot of people with BP, especially untreated, they don't make better friends than they do lovers or partners anyway. They really don't. It's still push-pull. It's still splitting. They have all those relational difficulties. So I'm not saying there couldn't be somebody out there with BPD who can be a better friend than a partner, but like that's true of some, but many, 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 it's not true of it all. And Maria's Kitty Cats. My ex-husband does. Oh, I said that. Yeah, but boy, yeah, good reason to not enter into any, or have contact with, or at all try to be friends with, because you know that scary temper obviously landed him in jail and led to some really atrocious behavior and beyond there. Spica, hi there. How are you? Yes, greetings from Paraguay. Well, that's cool. So yeah, already two people have shared, here tonight that it's certainly was really painful for them trying to be friends with an ex, with BPD. And so I think it's something that is really important that people realize is really not healthy for you. Hey there, Sarah. How are you doing? You said my ex, I'll just say BPD, but I appreciate you put the PW there, has texted me, quote, "How are you doing?" unquote, after 2 months of no contact. Why did it come back around? I have not seen him in 3 years. Well, because it's an, let me say, first of all, that happening after, you said 2 months, but you haven't seen him in 3 years, is a good indicator that if he's in therapy, he's not getting anywhere, or he hasn't chosen to go to therapy. So why they come back around like that is because unless and until they get significant treatment that can take years, well, they don't let go of anything. And the fact that you don't hear from them for a while, then you hear from them, to come back around when maybe something they tried just didn't work out with somebody else, and they end up alone. And it might seem, hi, how are you doing? Might not seem like a Hoover, but it's still a Hoover. because it, depending on how you, if you engage it or not, they're often going off for periods of time trying to have a relationship with somebody else, and then when it goes to, where in a handbasket over time or quickly, then they recontact the last person they were with because it's what they need. Let me just say, they come back around because of what they need. They don't come back around to do you any favors. They don't come back around to see you when they didn't see you in the relationship. They don't come back around to hear you. They don't come back around having anything to do with you. It's all about them. And Maria's kitty cats. Issues. Yes. Spiky. Yeah. Protect yourself, kitty cat. Yes. Sarah, we tried to be friends, but it didn't work. Obviously because of his behavior. Because his behavior was strange. Well, yeah, and I wonder in trying to be friends, when you were doing that with your ex, with BPD, did you did you find that there were still similar patterns and issues as if you were still in the relationship? Because these things are not entirely different for untreated people with BPD and a vast majority of others with BPD. Or a friendship hangs, even a friendship with somebody who isn't an ex with BPD, hangs on threads of, watch out, because they split into value everybody relationally, not just significant others. Hey there, Albert. How are you? My ex sometimes seems crazy. Other times seems normal. Who's the real person? Well, with BPD, there is really not a real person there yet. That's what therapy is about, finding the lost self. So I would say there's a part of her, like a remnant of what she could find out more about herself in therapy, that might be the one that seems a little more real. And the one that's crazy is the one that is needs much more treatment for BPD, because she still seems like the walking split of paradox of, not paradox, sorry, of dichotomy. Being that these are two so separate parts of her, right? So I think that you're obviously still in touch with your ex, but I wonder why that is. Because are you trying to be friends? Because when they can seem normal one minute and then it's crazy the other, that's still the splitting and the devaluation and everything, because that is not exclusive to significant other relationships. And Sarah said he's not in therapy, I'm sure. It was always painful cycles. Each time I used to think he changed, but he's the same. Well, yes, and without therapy, how could he change? Really, because they just can't do it on their own. And then you said, yes, the patterns and similarities, I guess most things were, and similar things, or what you've been through before in the relationship, were the same. The only difference was he wouldn't see me in person, but his mannerisms and things he said, hot and cold, on and off, was the same, and it hurt. I'm really sorry to hear that, because sounds like you're still working on maybe trying to get to that no contact that would really be the best for you. Maria's kitty cats. My ex-husband arrest history is written on the internet. Oh, okay. Wow. That people don't usually share that kind of stuff, but okay. But I'm not going to read it out. But it's there. And Rab said also, if you stay friends with the ex, they will punish you for things you did in the relationship while being friends. Ain't that a kick in the pants? Laugh out loud. I'm sorry to hear that, Rab. But yes, it would be a real kick in the pants for sure. And that's a good point that you raise, right? Because I was generally saying things will be the same, things will be similar. But yes, you remind me, Rab, to say, and what you experience, that often they will keep bringing up things from the relationship because they don't solve anything, and you didn't get closure. And then if you try to be friends, and when that doesn't work out, because it usually doesn't work out, you won't get closure from that either. And of course they don't really have closure, so by staying friends or trying to be friends after a relationship, then yeah, Rab, I totally understand. Like, I mean, you probably didn't expect that, but she was still punishing, and they will punish and or be angry and or still be splitting and or be all up in what they still think happened in the relationship, which is often, it's about someone in a significant other relationship, but just like a friend, favorite person for people with BPD even. Um, it represents that object other parent, right? In idealization, good parent or parent never had. In devaluation, bad wounding parent. So yeah, that won't stop just because you're out of a relationship and now you're trying to be in the friend zone with them. Another good reason not to try that. Albert, I feel like X lies a lot, but when I ask her call her out, she doesn't want to talk about it. Well, that's pretty common too, and that's. I mean, you might want to think about where you're spending your energy because if she lies, you call her out on it, and she's like, so she's not capable of taking personal responsibility, which is also something, a quality that's really important to have in a friend, even more so in a partner, right? And somebody who's not lying to you. Sarah, I'm trying to just block him. I haven't yet. I was feeling bad for going no contact, but I realize I'm betraying myself by feeling sorry for him. Well, yeah, because feeling sorry for them, pity, that kind of emotion of pity is really with all due respect, I mean this, right? It's a big waste of energy. It's a wasted emotion because pity only will hurt you, Sarah, and does nothing for the ex, right? So sometimes people have compassion, sometimes people have empathy, sometimes people do pity the person with BPD. But the thing is, you have to divest yourself, detach in your own healing and recovery process from any energy, thoughts, or those type of feelings being put in the direction of a person with BPD or an ex with BPD. And that's another fantastic reason not to ever try to be friends with an ex with BPD because it's yeah, they're just going to keep encroaching and they're just going to keep seeking what they need from you without giving anything because they don't know how to be mutual or reciprocal or consistent or congruent. And I can understand it's difficult because it's varying people find it varying degrees of difficult, right? To actually get that no contact done and to stick to it too. Albert, we have a child together. Should I try to be friends with my ex? Well, no, not really, Albert. My 2 cents would be, try to work on a co-parenting plan. But oh, I'm sorry. Who said that? Yeah, that was Albert. Sorry. Try to work on a co-parenting arrangement with boundaries where you detach, but you're not really friends with her. But like you gotta just talk about anything that comes up around the child's welfare. Hopefully you both have custody or you're having visitation or whatever the case may be. But no, co-parenting does not require trying to be friends with the ex. In fact, it can make the co-parenting worse. So it's like having a clear boundary that you are only in contact with this person for the sake of the child, about the child, and nothing else. So if they try to talk about anything else or suggest anything else, and it's usually really better if things aren't done together once your exes, with a child. It's still better that each of you have your own time with the child and to hold to those boundaries. And I think if you try to be friends, it would just be more conflict, probably end up being harder on your child than if you can detach and just maintain boundaries within co-parenting and only communicating to your ex with BPD about the child and nothing else. Not your life, not what you're doing, not how you're feeling. You don't want to hear what they're feeling, what they're doing, what's their problem. Just what affects the child only. And I'm tired. It's hard going no contact, but each day gets easier. Well, yes, it is very hard to go no contact, but I'm glad to hear that each day is getting easier for you. And thank you for sharing that because I think people need to be reminded of that quite a bit. Going no contact is a little bit like, when people choose to break up with a person with BP as opposed to be ghosted, it's like getting in that rickety boat, right? And starting to row somewhere you haven't been before. So it takes, you have to take it 1 minute, then 1 hour, then maybe half a day to a day at a time to a week. And like right now, you've been no contact for a month. So that's great. And to keep that going. And each day you say gets easier. Yes, because it's a process like everything else to do with healing and recovering and getting away from the ex with BPD and all the reasons why people need to do that. And Sarah said, is there something you suggest to say when we are blocking them? Like letting them know we will be blocking them? Well, I don't know. I think largely I believe that what people need to do is just do what they need to do without announcing it. Because, unless you're going to say something really quickly and do all the blocking, you're going to get something back and it's just going to be more, that you don't need. So I always recommend to people to just do what they need to do. And that's block everything and not give any explanation and not give any warning. But if you really feel like you need to say something, then just say, yeah, can't do this anymore, blocking you. But then block so you don't get the response back. So I would recommend the best thing to do, which is probably the most difficult for so many people, is just block them and go no contact and don't say anything. Because guess what? You're responsible for you now, and you need the no contact to heal and recover. I don't just mean you, Sarah, everybody, you and general you out there. You need that space and you need the no contact and you need to be focusing more on yourself and you don't need to explain yourself because people with BPD don't know what they've done or they may know or they might not know, but they're responsible for what they've done. They will take no responsibility. So not in any angry way do I mean this, but they don't deserve an explanation. And if you try to give an explanation or a warning, they're just going to get you for it anyway. Who needs it? Take care of yourself. It's part of turning that corner. So that would be my 2 cents worth. But depending which way you feel you need to do it, just don't. If you're going to say something, block and don't wait for the answer, or you're just going to be re-engaged, and it's going to defeat your. It could defeat your. It could throw you backwards from actually getting to no contact when you actually go to do that. Spiker, for me, going no contact is still very hard and hurtful. Well, I'm sure, and I'm not sure why it's hurtful, but the thing is, it's very painful for people without a doubt, because it's a massive change. But no contact is the beginning. Some people start in recovery before that, but to really get anywhere in your healing and recovery journey, you really need that no contact. And so saying no to them finally is what's going to give you the space to be more with yourself, which for a lot of people with codependency means that's going to hurt and you need to learn how to deal with that. But better to be doing that as soon as people can than still abandoning yourself to like a person who's an ex now, but still kind of in the pattern of the unhealthy bondness of it all that you need to move further away from, to get away from totally actually. But Maria's kitty cats, I had a really scary dream that looked and felt so real that my ex-husband was knocking at my door in the daytime, and I said to my adult son that his father is knocking at the door. So I opened the door and oh my goodness, yes, and the dream was really scary. Well, and sometimes dreams do come from an intuitive place, a concern, a valid concern, but definitely your fear being expressed in that dream. And what you dreamt, though, I would suggest to me, and the fact that he's in prison, and it sounds like a dangerous, unpredictable kind of person. So you might want to really take some more safety precautions, because to dream something like that, it's not so disconnected from the reality that this person is scary, right? And as I've been dealing with some clients recently too, telling them that they're saying that people are making statements about doing things to them and then themselves, etc. And I'm working with clients to help them to understand. They're like, yeah, but this person's been saying it for a while. And I'm like, yeah, but you can't just dismiss that. You have to take care of yourself, because there's no even the most expert in the world, whoever that may be, on all of these issues, not a one of us can tell a client or help a client to predict, or nor would I ever say to a person like yourself with that dream, your concerns, what's really happening with that ex, you can't take for granted that there wouldn't come a time when they would turn everything against you and hurt you or worse. And so, past behavior and or things threatened is the best predictor of what's likely to happen in the future, and people really need to take care of themselves. That might mean if you don't have a dog, get a dog, get a good Rottweiler or something, train it up, really, or a German Shepherd, and or alarms and cameras, and who knows, maybe there's something that from the relationship. I don't know if you've ever involved the police or reported anything, but documentation, and be careful. Rob, the no contact is definitely hard. Rage, sadness. I used to keep looking out my work window and was hoping to see her car pull up, but being involved with them is more hurtful. Well, yes, and of course, um, so after, I think you're saying, so after you went no contact, after trying to be friends with your ex, that, there was rage and sadness, and then you would keep looking out your work window hoping that you'd see her car pull up. And yeah, even though being involved with them was more hurtful, see that will elongate for people the reasons, that you can't stop thinking about them, right? And then that gets in people's way of healing and recovery too. So actually, I was trying to do a video tonight that kind of didn't work out right, and so it'll probably be up tomorrow. But it's on 5 key central reasons for people with codependency after BPD relationships, why people can't stop thinking about these people. So I hope to have that up tomorrow, and I hope that will be helpful to people. And VGHG, okay. My friend is totally unaware that she exhibits BPD traits. She reaches out, then discards. Well, yes, and I take it you're saying you're friends, so maybe like this is somebody that you've only been friends with, right? But you're experiencing what, splitting and the black and the white of it all, even in a friendship. And Sarah, you said I agree with you, AJ. Thanks. Well, yeah, it's so hard to do, Sarah. I really understand that, but yeah, it's like it's your time now, and you deserve it. And it's there are difficult steps to take. Going no contact is very difficult, but only by doing it can people start to realize, like someone said earlier, it will be difficult at first, and then it will start to get easier. If only minutes at a time, a half an hour at a time, then a little bit longer, it'll be an hour, it'll be half a day, it'll be a day, then it gets easier day by day. So it's something that people really, if I can put it this way, you really deserve it, and you really owe it to yourself, excuse me, in your healing and recovery journey, so that you won't keep, because any contact keeps pulling people back, if not all the way back, but like it interrupts people's moving forward in their healing and recovery. And BBHG, what is it like to grow up with a high functioning BPD mother? I wouldn't know, since I don't think mine was that high functioning, and she was BPD NPD comorbid. But I think for some people, I mean, it's hard to say, because I'm not going to say there's not one person out there with BPD who's had some treatment who can be a pretty reasonable mother. But what's it like to grow up with a high functioning BPD mother? Well, for most people, the BPD mothers are largely, not all of them, but most of them, unavailable emotionally. Sometimes very unpredictable, right? Sometimes they'll split on you. So it really often leaves children without emotional safety. And it can be a reason for the adverse childhood response of codependency, right? It can also be for other people a deeper woundedness, and they will also be diagnosed with BPD. So, it very much often creates codependency in a child. And the more high functioning somebody is with BPD, don't forget, that just means the more elaborate coping mechanisms they have. And I'm going to have a lot more coming on BPD, NPD comorbidity as well. And one of the things there too, I was reading something on it earlier today, but I can't exactly remember it now. But the higher functioning people with BPD sometimes may have something going on with a bit of comorbidity, and then it's hard to explain what does a bit of comorbidity mean, because I need to like really process more what I was reading. But so it you know, it there can be there's narcissism within BPD. So a high functioning, like I think one of the things that they were talking about in what I was reading was that, which is a clinical book, by the way. I wasn't reading it on the internet, just so people know. Um, yes, the more high functioning, the stronger the defenses, and often, not always, but it means some level that can fluctuate, actually, as I've been reading about this, of comorbidity with BPD NPD. So, but to say what it's actually like, I just know that my mother was, well, maybe she was a little more high functioning in a way, but I don't know how to attribute that to her. All I know is she was emotionally unavailable and a friggin' emotional nightmare. And she was, I went through a lot of adverse childhood experience at the expense of that woman, because of that. So, I don't think it's usually pretty damaging to kids. Let me just put it that way. Marie's kitty cats. Being in no contact with an ex that has bipolar disorder is important for safety reasons for yourself and oneself. Yes. And hard to say. Could have been in one of those bipolar episodes. He must have it severely and really not want treatment or be undertreated. But hard to say if he isn't comorbid with something else, with the way that he behaved. It really is hard to say because it could be or it might not be, right? Which is not so helpful for me to say at all. But there's a chance that he is comorbid with something else. Albert, I did sorry, hoping her car pull up the house. Oh, you've been thinking about and hoping her car would pull up to your house many nights too. It's understandable, right? Because you're missing the person, even though they're impossible to be with, and it's really painful. And then you said, now I get anxiety when I hear from my child's mother. Well, that's understandable. And I wonder, is she, when you hear from your child's mother, is she just keeping it to what you need to know about your child, or does she go anywhere in communication? Because that's something you have to try to, when I say gently, I just mean not say something really harsh to her, but you need to keep working on your boundaries and not listening to things that don't have to do with your child if that's what she's communicating. And so you still have that cognitive dissonance too, Albert, of, you feel like you're hoping on many nights that her car will pull up, and yet when you hear from her, you get anxiety when you hear from her. And you said when you hear from your child's mother, so that means it's not necessarily even about your child. Like, I'm not sure. So that's still emotional and cognitive dissonance. So I hope that you're, working in a healing recovery process, or that you'll think about it, because yeah, you really still, the contact. I mean, obviously when there's a child involved, there has to be contact, but it needs to only be the co-parenting contact. And it's hard to get those boundaries set and those limits set, in a way, because they shouldn't be set like very verbally or very like strongly. They need to be set and then reinforced, maybe without talking about it. But you then get into new action with new boundaries that kind of just doesn't allow or enable the person with BPD to contact you outside of the co-parenting or your child. And the way you do that is by just narrowing, by just not engaging conversations or contacts that aren't about the child. And then if that happens several times, you might say, you know, you'd have to be careful, but you might want to set a limit, which is something like, we need to talk about our child, and I want to know what's happening with our child, etc. Then you might just have to throw in, I care about you because it's your child's mother, but we really, can't be talking back and forth about other things. If in fact just doing it by modeling new boundaries and limits, that doesn't work. But you want to try to stay out of having to say much, because then they get really reactionary. But so it's interesting that, even people that have to co-parent, or have communication because they have children or a child together, that is so difficult that I think it suggests that it wouldn't be easier to be friends or in contact with an ex or try to be friends with an ex if there was no child involved. It's like even when people have to do it because of children and they love their children, etc., it's so difficult. And I think it's more difficult for people to, set clear boundaries, identify boundaries, and implement them and take action on them, um, by modeling them, I mean. And to really heal from these relationships when there is a child or children involved, because there is that contact again, right? And you want to keep it limited to the children, as I've said here several times, but it's still very difficult for people because people with BPD don't tend to have those boundaries. And so the idea of being friends with an ex, or friends with a person with BPD even, but an ex with BPD especially, it's just going to be, unfortunately, more trouble than it's worth and more pain than it's worth. And then for people that are friends with people with BPD that you haven't been in a relationship with, well, many of them can't handle friendship any better, as I said, because this relational difficulty, these relational challenges that they have, among other challenges, for many, many people with BPD, and especially untreated, go right across the board. They don't get along with family. They don't, and maybe there's a reason in the family why, but they don't get along with friends. They might not get along with other relatives. They just don't get along with people. And so it's not just in significant other relationships. Could be some people with BPD like that now, like if they've had some help or whatever, but still, even friendships are pretty rocky and dicey for people that haven't been romantically involved with people with BPD. So I think it's a really important thing, for people to think about and really think maybe twice or three or four or five times about, as people here have shared that when they tried it, and one person for 3 years, and I can't remember how long Rav said, but and it ended up, it blocks recovery, and you get hurt even more, and it's not really worth it. Or people should think more about themselves and their own going forward, I would say, especially when there isn't a child involved. And Albert, she invited me to her family's get together and did state it's just for my daughter, but not sure if I should go or just cut all ties. Well, I wonder, are you sharing custody would be really important to know, or do you have visitation? And I think that, again, it depends on what your specific situation is with that, but it would be better for you to probably see your daughter just without her mother, than to be going to like some family thing, because there's a slippery slope right there. So when you say cut all ties, I don't know what that means for you seeing your child, or what you're, and you don't have to tell me all of that here on a live stream or anything, but I'm just saying that's what you might want to think about. But yeah, it sounds like her inviting you to a family get together is over the line in terms of that's not just communication about your child. And while you would maybe see your child, that's her being over boundaries and limits, I think. So it depends how you feel, but my 2 cents worth would be that it might be best if you didn't go to the family get together. Because even though she said it's just for your daughter, I certainly hope you're seeing your daughter, on your own, and that you don't have to always be like with her family or her to see your daughter. So only you know what the whole situation is. But when you say cut all ties, I think, except for co-parenting, um, oh, you do. I have my daughter co-parent. Oh, good. Well, then, you can't cut all ties. I think I'm not sure what you mean by that, but what I would suggest would be best for you is, except for communication about the child, when you're picking up the child or she's dropping off or however you work that, there should be no other communication. When I say should, meaning it's best for you, and it's probably best in the long run for your child too. So if I were you, I wouldn't be attending any family gathering just because she says, oh, she's only inviting you because of her daughter. It's a mixed message, and it's boundary cross all over the place. And so if you do go, you're going to be sending her a message counter to the boundaries that you may need to implement if you haven't already. Well, AJ, you are fabulous and a godsend. Such a blessing for me. How are you? Oh, well, thank you for your very kind words. I'm doing quite well, thanks, except I wrecked my neck again. But then all I have to do is fall asleep in a chair and go, my head goes over to one side, the other. So a little bit of a sore neck, but I'm doing quite well. And yeah, other than the crazy world situation we're in, I'm in a great relationship. It's happy. It's great. So yeah, I'm doing really fine. And I'm just glad that like I was trying to do this live stream since like 9:30, well, kind of last night now, but 9:30 Eastern, and I don't know when I started, but like holy cow, technical issues. So, but thank you for asking. I'm doing quite well. Thank you. Hi there, Clover. Should I block the NPD Ex? Well, I would say 100% yes, but it's easier for me to say than you to do, right? I want to keep him unblocked so I can know that he isn't calling me because I want to know the truth about how little he cares and not fool myself that he may have called. Oh, interesting, because that's just setting a trap for yourself, Clover. Um, you know, I, that's, with all due respect, it sounds like you're going to feel out of control, right? So if you go no contact, then you're going to lose some control. And that's true for people, but that's something people have to learn to cope with. It sounds like you're trying to hang on to too much control. That isn't good for you, right? Like you want to keep him unblocked so you can know if he isn't calling, because you want to know the truth about how little he cares. I think maybe, Clover, if you think about it, that the fact that he isn't with you now and he's off with somebody else and he's a narcissist, um, he will only come back if you were ever to come back. It's only just to use you again and go again. And so there's no care there already. And I think you mentioned that in other streams. And so you're kind of putting yourself in your own like mind trap there, because you said you want to know the truth. I think you already know the truth. You just might not want to know that you know the truth about how little he cares, because he doesn't care. And well, if you block him, then you have to let go of whether or not he calls or not, right? Which would be really healthy for you going forward. Very difficult to do. But yes, I think, in answer to your question, should you block the NPDX? I think absolutely you should. But you have to be ready for that. And you also probably need to get, if you haven't already, some therapy and some help to cope with this stuff. It's very difficult. And oh, Abel, yeah, I used to go to a chiropractor a lot, but now it's just a matter of a couple days, and I did it 2 days ago too. So if I don't do that, then things are usually better. So it will, I have those Dr. Ho massage pads, and I have a neck massager, so it'll get better in a day or two. It's not a big deal. It's really stiff. That's all. And sore. But I do have a bad neck. But yeah, I don't go to the chiropractor hardly at all anymore because, well, I don't even know under all the restrictions if he's even open. But yeah, it'll be okay. It'll settle down. Thank you for that. And yeah, Clover, think about what I said, because it's very emotionally difficult to do. And you have other issues that you really need to get some help and support with. And so you can feel better about yourself too. And I think you already know the truth that you said that you wanted to find out if you didn't block them, but you already know that. So maybe that's just hard to not maybe be in denial about sometimes. But yeah, think about it and just realize that you're setting a mind trap for yourself there, because like I said, not to be too repetitive, but you already know that he doesn't care. And I can tell you, because he's a narcissist, that you've told me he's a narcissist, they don't care, and they're always about supply, and when he's got other supply, he's not going to come back, and if he was ever to come back, he still wouldn't care about you. So it's really important to know that. It's hard, but it's really important to know that you are worth so much more than that. And then you said, I just don't see the point of blocking someone that never calls. Yeah, that's the truth. Well, because if he runs out of source for a while, he might come on back to take advantage and without caring, and you don't need that. That would be difficult, but you just get hurt all over again. And you said the truth is that it doesn't matter if I block or not. Well, I think it does matter. But I mean, that's your decision to make. I think that it matters for you to be able to, get into a process to deal with the other things you need to deal with, let alone having a narcissist ex, right? So, yeah, you could be right in the sense that maybe he'll never call you again. But I don't think it's a very kind thing to do to yourself or way to treat yourself to leave that possibility open, knowing that maybe you'd have a lot of difficulty resisting if in fact he ever did call. The other thing about no contact, let alone not being in friend zones with exes or even people with BPD or NPD, because they don't really make good friends either, is that when you don't go no contact, guess what? Your focus is going to be more and more on them, because I've had clients say, well, I'm like, they're working on going no contact, but they'll say, well, I keep looking at my phone because I wonder, if he's texted, or I wake up and I'm, because I don't know, maybe people turn the ringer off or not, but it keeps people actively engaged on focusing on the narcissist or the person with BPD, and that's not healthy for people. And Alice, hey there. It's been around a month since I blocked my BPD Ex on WhatsApp, and I feel so much better now. Well, that's good. And I'm glad that you're able to do that for yourself. And when you say that you blocked them on WhatsApp, is that the only way that they could contact you? Or have you taken care of it in any other way that, and maybe that is the only way they could contact you? But that's good, because no contact, versus contact. I mean, for one thing, and I have this video coming out tomorrow, like I said, about, codependency and why you can't stop thinking about them. And if people don't go no contact, it just leaves all the reasons that, and things that drive people to think about the cluster B more and more and more, it just leaves that wide open. And then people are, that's what makes it so difficult to go no contact, is the reality that you're going to have to feel some pain and do something about it then, because it will help you shift focus over time in a way that keeping lines of communication open doesn't help you shift your focus onto yourself and onto healing and recovery. Alice said, I've been struggling with feelings of guilt for so long, it's a relief to finally let go. Yes, well, and so it is a struggle for so many people, but you don't have anything to feel guilty about, for sure, because you're taking care of yourself and you deserve that. And I'm glad that you said, like, it took you a while, but it's such a relief to finally let go. And that is that sort of, unknown territory that people really need to get into, because people are afraid of it. People don't know how it's going to feel. It's a big change, but it does bring with it, a stronger uh, capacity to focus on oneself going forward in healing and recovery, which every person really deserves. So I think when people get to no contact and stay no contact, even if they're actively struggling with it every day for a while, that is investing in yourself and your worth and value to yourself. And going forward, it makes all the difference in the world, because when people stay in contact, when they hear from the person, invariably it sends them several steps back. And if you start, when you start to have success, or maybe you already have, Alice, in a month, and Rab and other people, when you have success in getting them off your mind more of the time, as soon as you hear from them, you got to start from ground zero with that again. And Alice said, your videos helped me so much. Thank you, AJ. Oh, you're very welcome. I'm glad they're helpful. And Clover, I guess I need to get to the place where I don't care if he called or not. Just out of curiosity, are narcs more bothered by being blocked or by someone not responding to their call? I don't really think they're more bothered by that, because people with BPD tend to have less resilience for that and more fear of abandonment. And most people with narcissistic personality are not invested in those feelings. So likely it's like, if you blocked, and if you were ever to call, and like, don't count on it, right? Because narcissists can hoover people back sometimes, but I mean, they're not hoovering to try anything over, to do anything different. They're just trying to get supply for the moment, and off they go again. So I think he probably, a typical narcissist, the answer to that would call a number. They're blocked, they can't get through, they'll move on to the next supply. That's because that's basically what they're always doing anyway. And in narcissistic personality, it's more everything is a transaction. They're certainly not feeling anything, at all, and it's absolutely all about them. So there's really nothing for you to lose there but pain. So I think yeah, I get to the place. Well, you know, getting to a place where you don't care if he calls or not would be getting into some healing and recovery for BPD for you, and also finding yourself and respecting yourself and caring more about yourself. Because it's not even about not caring whether he calls or not. It's like not even thinking about him anymore. That's really important to get to. And then you said, Clover, it's so hard for me to understand an arc. Well, okay, fair enough, but let me put it this way, they're not even worth understanding at the end of the day. Whenever I try to imagine how it would be for someone who has no empathy, I just can't imagine. Well, and that's the thing. He has no empathy, so, you know, he can only, if he ever were to contact you again, he can only cause you more pain. And so, if you think about it and think about yourself for a while, you deserve to block him and just start to like work to forget about him, which takes time. And part of healing and recovery too. Gonna be harder because you've shared on other streams, right? That you have BPD, or you think you do, or so. This is part of starting to be kind to the self in you that you need to know so much better, Clover. And narcissists are totally bad news. They just really are. So, but I think anyway, friendship with a BPDX, I think the answer should be a resounding no. It doesn't work. They're not better friends than they are partners. They're not better family members, and in any other relationship type, as I've said. And Albert said, I think the way my ex and I broke up blindsided me is part of why I think about it so much. Well, that's a big part of it for a lot of people, because it really is blindsiding. It can be shocking, and there's no closure, and then there's cognitive dissonance and all those kind of things, and so um, that's part of why you think about her so much. And then, like, the video I hope to have out tomorrow will explain a little bit more about the other things that are going on that people often don't realize because they might not really be in touch with their feelings. And so the thinking about the cluster B so often is really driven by a lot of what you're feeling. But until people get into the healing and recovery journey to really go deep and figure out what the feelings are, because feelings drive thoughts, right? So a lot of people are aware of the thoughts, but they're not aware of the feelings driving the thoughts. And is that Mill B? My ex keeps saying he doesn't want to be where he is. He wants to be with me and the kids, or he will do something drastic. I told him I will get them because I don't want my kids in that environment. Well, yes, it sounds like kids probably shouldn't be around somebody who's that unstable and saying that kind of thing, because I mean, among other things, that's emotional blackmail, right? That he because he's trying to get you to take him back and like make it all okay again. You can't make it all okay because you're not the reason why it wasn't okay. And it's too bad that he doesn't want to be where he is and that he wants to be with you, because unless and until he gets into therapy, engages that for real, and does the work that he needs to do to heal and change and grow and learn who he is, etc., and take personal responsibility. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear. Yes, he is. Does that mean he's in therapy? Well, still, that takes a long time. And the fact that he doesn't want to be where he is and he wants to be with you and the kids, or he will do something drastic, suggests, well, he has a big mountain to climb in therapy still, right? Because look at that behavior. it suggests that he's probably still where he was before he started therapy, right? He's not taking personal responsibility. And it sounds like your kids really shouldn't be in that environment. And we see terrible things on the news all the time, and I'm not saying it would ever be that bad, but people who do, horrible things and or, take their kids' lives, etc., because they can be like, well, if I can't be with you and you can't have them, you always have to protect children, and you always have to err on the side of caution, because I don't think all the people that do that are necessarily they could have BPD. They're not all BPD, but they're not all like psychopathically crazy either. So you got to really protect your children and yourself. And and of course things are difficult, whether or not you have been to court over anything or not. But well, and if that's your worry, then listen to your worry and listen to your gut instinct, because you need to take action. Because like I said, nobody can, not even, well, even if you were a client of mine, or even if I'd met him in person and talked to him for hours, I could, nobody, and not a therapist he's seeing right now, nobody can predict what he actually may impulsively one day enact, right? So, or do. So I think if you have any documentation, if there's any way to document the threat, etc., it's really time to get the law involved, because you really need to protect your kids and yourself. And I'm not trying to overblow that these people can be dangerous, but like many of them are, many of them aren't. But you can't know when they use this kind of tactic and emotional blackmail, etc. You can't know whether or not they would do it or not. So you have to err on the side of extreme caution. And Clover, they all do it out of the blue. Disappear, I mean. They fake it till the last second. Narcs, I mean. Yes, they do. Hey there, Two Bang Boon. I hope I'm saying that right, because I'm saying it faster, and I hope it's like at least correct a little bit. AJ, thank you so much for your advice to stay no contact with people with BPD or a person with BPD. You're exactly right. We can't rescue them. They are very inconsistent, like a moving target, but without a goal. Thank you. Yes, and they will just keep taking your energy and taking you away from yourself. And, people with codependency need to learn how to heal that, so that you won't run into the next cluster B, let alone who needs to be friends with the ex, right? Or accept someone in your life who's got BPD and you know that, or you see the signs, as a friend at all. Even if you haven't been in a relationship with them. And Sarah, do BPD people also see a person as, quote, supply, unquote, like narcs do? Well, you're really welcome, Milby, and I would, do your best to keep your kids out of the environment, take care of yourself, and protect yourself and them, and start with a restraining order. And of course, they're not guaranteed. They're not like uh, the be all to end all. But again, it would be security. And if you don't have a dog, get a big one. Get one well trained. Get a protective one, cameras, etc. This is what a lot of people need to do, because some people, I mean, impulse control is hugely lacking in a lot of people with BPD, and then they make these kind of threats and stuff, and you never know. Is all I'm saying. Not saying that he would, but can't say that he won't. And back to Sarah there. You said, do BPD people also see a person as supply? I don't really think so. It's more about that trying to get identity through you, and that object other relating, of which they are relating, like not necessarily a 2-year-old, but like not like an adult, right? So sometimes people with BPD have progressed on a little to be like 12 or 14 emotionally. And but yeah, they don't seek supply like narcissists really know, unless there's a lot of narcissistic traits and or comorbidity with BPD, NPD. So it might look the same at times, but that's not what the drivers are underneath the behavior. That's not what's emotionally going on for them, but they don't know what that is anyway. So in a way, it can be said that it is also fueled when people with BPD keep reaching back and recontacting if you let them, etc. it's also fueled by their codependency, but they don't have like, I'm not trying to say that people with codependency are like people with BPD, but people with BPD have codependency, and so it can be just as hard. It's harder for them to let go even after maybe they ghosted or let go. But no, I don't think they're seeking supply unless there's a lot of narcissistic traits or comorbidity. Hi there, JT. How you doing? He said emotional blackmail is a continuation of, well, yes, it is absolutely a continuation of that. And there's no excuse for that. It's, because that's got a couple people here have mentioned this in the stream, worried about their safety and or the safety of their children. And, and again, the good news is that a lot of people with BPD are never going to do what they threaten. But the bad news is a significant number do, and no professional can know who's who. There's no way to know that because of poor impulse control. And I guess it could be said with some accuracy that males may well act that out more than females, but that's not to say it's off the table for females either. Remember that woman, was it in Charlotte, North Carolina, or somewhere years ago? I think her first name was Susan, and she drove down to a lake with her two kids in the back of the car, and she got out of the car, and they drowned. And was she just BPD? Did she have more? I don't know. But there's a case of where a woman did something horrible. So I'm not just trying to lay it only on men. I just think the percentage chance goes up a little bit with men with BPD. Not all men with BPD either, but like no professional, even when working with somebody with BPD, can assess if they speak like that or they've acted out like that before, or even the person who is ex of somebody with bipolar who may or may not just have bipolar. No professional can predict what they'll do. And so that means people have to err on the extreme side of caution and taking all precautions and hopefully getting some legal documentation in the works too. So that if these people come around or make contact or whatever, then they start to get arrested and then they'll end up in jail for all that stuff before something worse happens. Clover, I have BPD and I use people for supply. Well, yes, but you also said, Clover, if I'm keeping my facts straight here, that you thought you had BPD potentially comorbid with NPD, that you said you had BPD with many narcissistic traits. So if I'm correct about that, correct me if I'm not correct, but I believe you said that before. So please don't leave one part out, which is if you have BPD and you use people for supply, you've also indicated that you think you have narcissistic traits or maybe comorbid BPD, NPD. So again, that would change the situation for the majority of people with BPD because they're not using people as supply. But I hear you when you say you do, Clover, and I think that's very self-aware of you. And the hope is with that self-awareness, I hope you'll think about therapy again because I know you tried once and you didn't like it. Oh, I'm glad you're doing well, JT. That's great. And so I think, this is a really important topic, and I just want to reiterate that I've had clients who've had friendships only with people with BPD, so not even being the ex of a person with BPD, and they get incredibly hurt and shocked and shattered too when they get treated as horribly and as painfully as significant others will by a friend with BPD. And it's really, really difficult for people in all relationship types of people with BPD who really just can't relate in any healthy, consistent, congruent, or even like they just can't relate age appropriately. Let me put it that way. Clover, well, I mean, people use people. I have empathy though. Well, I'm not following you anymore, Clover, because it's getting very contradictory. So, and I'm just going based off what you said on other streams. I don't mean you any disrespect. So I'm not sure what you're actually saying here because if you mean people use people, people with empathy don't use people, usually. So I don't know how that works because there's kind of a contradiction there. But, hey, I'm not trying to disrespect you in any way. just trying to clarify for other people, and maybe if it helps you, maybe it'll help you. I don't know. So, wow, we have a lot of people here tonight listening for sure. And some people, but I guess some people just like to listen and don't necessarily join in. But hopefully there's some good takeaway for you here. Clover, okay, never mind. I'm not a health professional. Well, no, Clover, I just want you to understand that what you're saying is just mixed messages, okay? And that's okay because you're probably trying to figure things out. But I just want to clarify for other people where you're coming from so that they won't think because you said one thing that all people with BP, and not all people are the same. So I hope you understand where I'm coming from. And Sarah said, AJ, a personal question for you. When you had BPD, were you able to maintain lasting friendships? Yes and no. With some people, yes, and with other people, no, I lost friends. And sometimes when somebody would piss me off or what I would be triggered by something, but we didn't even know that word back then. And so a friend might do something that I just couldn't understand, and or I felt a bunch of stuff about that I didn't understand, and I would tell them to kind of F off. Or not say anything and just like sort of I would put them in the out of sight, out of mind category. Yeah, I either cut off friendships and or well, I mean, I cut off some friendships and other people went no contact from me. Yes. So, but then I was able to maintain some friendships. So that's kind of like a really weird answer, isn't it? But that's the truth. So, but then I lost a lot of friends because we always moved around a lot too. So, and then, but yeah, and then some friends of mine that I think I could say like I maintained the friendships. I still know them today, but then some of them backed up quite a bit, right? So they weren't as close or and then yeah, I probably had different friends here and there, and then maybe certainly in my late teens and early 20s, there was probably a lot of coming and going by people, whether it was me cutting them off or their choice. Some people hung on, like tried to be understanding or something about whatever I was doing or not getting in relating to others. And some of them backed off. And then when I was getting better in recovery, and I could make amends with them and I understood more what I was doing, then some of those friendships were able to continue. So it was sort of the gamut, really. The only thing I will say is I never ghosted a partner or anything like that. And I really didn't have that many relationships because I was with somebody for 13 years. So, and I didn't cheat on them or anything like that. So, um, Albert, my daughter came back home from a few days with her mother and said she saw my ex had a cut, had cut a word into her arm. Oh, yes, I think you mentioned this in one other live stream. But my ex says she's happy and where she wants to be. Well, I think your daughter's probably telling you the truth, and your ex is probably just trying to make everything seem okay, because people with BPD play this game called if they're okay, you can't be okay, and if you're okay, then they don't feel okay. So going to transactional analysis life scripts. Basically, I'll just interject this point that she's likely trying to play the I'm okay game to make you feel, quote, unokay. That's what she might think. And yet she's not okay. But so she's over compensatorily, I guess, lying to you in a way. Not I guess, but sounds like lying to you. And I think your daughter's telling you the truth. So they do that to kind of, make it seem like sometimes they'll do that to make it seem like everything's okay and they don't need you and etc. When they're not okay at all. And Clover, I can't maintain any friendships to Sarah. And Sarah said to Clover, why do you feel you can't maintain any friendships? Yes, interesting questions. And by the way, Clover, I hope you don't take anything I say at all as being in any way disrespectful to you, because I don't mean that at all. And I think that, you keep coming back, and that's important because I hope that it helps you a little bit and that you might get into therapy and get a little bit more help, because everybody needs help sometimes. Clover said, because I feel like if someone isn't perfect, then I want nothing to do with them. Or I think they offend me or wrong me and I'll get mad. Or I'll attract a narc that uses me and disappears. Yeah, wow. That sounds like something that must be really painful from childhood too, Clover, that, if someone isn't perfect, then you don't want anything to do with them. Yeah, but thank you for sharing that and for answering Sarah and for being so honest. I think you're very aware, which means if you would get back into therapy, if you could find somebody that you feel at least a little bit, maybe not really comfortable with, but just enough to like try, you have so much awareness, you could really help yourself in going back to therapy. And Sarah said, interesting logic, but are you perfect, Clover? And I was just thinking, we'll see if Clover has an answer for you there. It would be interesting to see. But I think too that idea of if somebody isn't perfect, Clover doesn't want to have anything to do with them. It probably speaks to a really deep childhood wound where a parent really must have let Clover down. So yeah, Clover said no, that but I try and want to be. Well, none of us are perfect, Clover, so that's a high expectation. That's a high bar that you're setting for yourself that might not be the most helpful thing, right? Because you want to be the best you can be. You want to grow and learn and all of that wonderful stuff. But nobody can be perfect. And I wonder, and again, you don't have to answer this, but it sounds like in your childhood that maybe somebody was pretty, not cruel to you because you couldn't be perfect. But you can't be perfect. Nobody can. Oh, Clover said, I know I'm actually garbage. Well, no, Clover, you're not garbage, but I think you grew up believing that. I think you had a parent or parents that may well have treated you that way, and I'm sorry to hear that because it's not true. And you're not garbage at all. See that dichotomous black and white thinking, right? If you're not perfect, then you think you're garbage, as you said. That's not true. There's like a big middle there for you to find. JT, perfectionism is a wheel of constant defeat. Well, yes, but a lot of people with BPD and or NPD or BPD and NPD traits, um, that's the message they get in childhood. That they quote weren't good enough, they get treated horribly, really a lot of adverse experience, and then they come out. Some people come out, kind of oppositionally to it, like I don't care about what they wanted from me, and some people are really in a wounded place where they really feel like if only they were perfect, the parents would have been different, and it's not true. And Clover said, yes, AJ is exhausting back and forth. Well, yeah, and I mean, see, you're even aware of the black and white, right? The splitting, the dichotomy there, and I hope, I keep saying this, Clover, but I mean it with all sincerity. Keep hoping you'll get into therapy again because you can learn what's in the middle there. Because it's not like I think you said in another stream you felt like a nobody, and myself and others said that's not true either. And I'm saying to you, it's not true that you're garbage. So it's also not true that you're perfect, but like there's a vast middle there that you could learn so much more about so that you could feel better because you deserve that. And you're very self-aware, Clover, and I really admire your honesty too. And I think that I hope that it is a positive thing for you when I share that you help others as well, and I hope that there's some help here for you as well. But the way you just explained what you said, and that's just one example of one person, right? But you struggle with relating to other people, and I don't think that that's anything that was your fault, Clover. And the only thing now is that you're the only one that can choose to go to therapy and work on that, right? But I don't think it's your fault. why you feel that way. Oh, Clarissa, thank you, and thanks for these chats. Oh, you're very welcome. And I super appreciate you, and I appreciate your honesty. So please know that, you know, and I value you, and I would really hope that you would come to value you too, and to know that there's this vast middle. You can find yourself in the middle there, but it will take therapy to do that. And Sarah also said to Clover, yes, thanks for being so candid. Yeah, I think there's a lot that people can learn, from people that are self-aware and people like Clover Sale who are honest and also probably looking for more understanding for themselves and but help other people with understanding, and I think that's a wonderful thing when people can be honest and have self-awareness. And then, like I've said before, Clover, I'll just say one more time, I don't want to overwhelm you with this, but so if you apply that and you go and seek out someone to have therapy with, you can really find that middle, because awareness is half the battle, and then there's the rest of the struggle, the battle, the learning, the growing. But you deserve that, you really do, because I don't think that your difficulties that you're so honest about are your fault at all. They're not. But now it's up to you to be able to take that step into therapy to be able to find the middle so you won't be hurting as much as you are. And then you can find a way to have friends and not being stuck in between people got to be perfect, or because obviously you've been really hurt, and you don't want to be hurt anymore, and that's quite understandable. And so I think equally, just to go back to the topic, can you be friends after a breakup, or BPD and friends in general, or NPD for that matter? Yes, many relationship types with people with BPD or NPD or comorbidity both, unfortunately, don't go so well for both sides really, but they don't go so well for people who are trying to be friends with the person with BPD, and that's not true for everybody, right? But again, and Clover said, "Yeah, it stinks." Well, I'm sure it does, and I'm sorry to hear that, because I don't know you at all, but I have a strong sense, that you really got hurt a lot in your childhood, and that wasn't your fault. So, and only you can make a different decision now to learn some more and help yourself. But that's hard to do when you don't trust other people, right? And like, no therapist is going to be perfect for you either, because like therapists aren't perfect either. But that's hard. But maybe you can just think about that some more, because everything that stinks right now, you could really work towards changing, and one step at a time. So it's interesting because a lot of different things coming out of this stream that I think will help a lot of people, and always value, like Clover Sale, what you share, the questions that you ask, and others, and people sharing their experiences, and you're helping each other, and you're also a big part of why these streams help other people. And I've noticed recently, if I can keep them a little shorter, and normally I have a little more info in the beginning, but this one is kind of self-explanatory, I think. And it's been one of the busiest live streams I've had for a while, which is great. And I think in terms of like there's more people listening than taking part, which is fine. I think it's a really hot topic, meaning it's really important for people to think about. And I think a lot of people find it really hard not to try to be friends with the ex, or friends with somebody with BPD in general, or many people are in the quote favorite person unquote role and may know more about that now, but many people are still the favorite person of somebody with BPD that they're not in any significant other relationship with, and they don't understand, the perils of that until all of a sudden that will be made clear, which is unfortunate. So, but again, I just like to say people with BPD or BPD and NPD traits, or people with BPD and NPD, or people with BPD, people with BPD, comorbid NPD, or people with NPD. Now, I'm not defending any narcissist, okay? But none of them asked for the adverse childhood experience that they got that created these issues that are then labeled as they're labeled, especially by American yeah, I'm gonna be Ricky Ricardo. No, psychiatrist, or whatever he used to say. I didn't even make the mistake correctly. But the key thing is nobody asks for this adverse childhood experience that creates these issues. The responses to adverse childhood experience that is BPD and that is NPD. And I'm not sanctioning anybody's behavior with that, or poor behavior, etc. But I'm just saying that this really comes out of woundedness in childhood. And yeah, then when people grow up and they're adults, like, man, there's nothing fair about the fact that then they have to learn to take responsibility, right? So I went through that too, and I remember that sort of stuck in my craw for quite a while. But then I had to let it go if I was going to become, the me that I was meant to be, and if I was going to be an adult. So, Sarah, it used to be so mind numbing to understand my person's behavior. He would text, I would reply with something normal, and he would disappear or not reply. It sucked, and everyone should go no contact. Yes, well, and here's hoping you get that, you get there soon, Sarah, because for your sake, no judgment in that, right? Riley, hey there. I'm in the middle of a divorce with my BPD wife, and things are going pretty well so far, and I'm worried to be closer than is necessary to co-parent well. Any advice on keeping healthy boundaries here? Well, actually, if it's going pretty well so far, good. That's great. Um, and you said you're worried to be closer than is necessary to co-parent. Well, I think that's very smart of you and very aware of you to be. You have every reason to be wary, and you want to really get to the point where you're going to be no contact with the ex when they become your ex-wife, except for the children, right? Except for the co-parenting, like I've said here a few times. And so if you haven't been here for a while, Riley, you might want to watch the beginning back. I have said it. I'll say it one more time quickly. And you said any advice on keeping healthy boundaries? Yes, detach totally from your ex-wife, and then you probably have some healing and whatnot to do after that relationship. But detach totally from her, and only communicate with her about the children, and set that boundary. Not, you might say something gently in words. Depends if you're involved. Well, you're getting divorced, so it depends how much legal involvement there is in everything, or if there's mediation, or if there isn't a custody battle going on. But the bottom line is, whether or not you would say anything. But if any or all of that is going on right now, then what you want to do, it's good that you're wary of getting, any closer than necessary. So what you need to do is identify for yourself, implement the boundary that you're only going to have contact with your soon to be or about to be ex-wife about the children and when that's necessary, and or however you're sharing custody or whatever the situation is. But you're not going to talk about the weather, and you're not going to talk about anything else she brings up. And so you model that boundary. You don't kind of say to her, hey, I don't want to talk to you, or I don't want to talk about that, or I don't, need to hear that. If she crosses any of that and says anything that is about you or her or the past and not your children, you just simply detach, disengage, gray rock yourself, whatever term you want to use. Do not reply, do not engage, and then carry on with whatever needs to be done for the children, whether you're passing them from you to her or back or the other. But the thing is, it's really important to implement that boundary. So by modeling the behavior to them, that you don't reply or respond to anything about them or anything they have to say about you, only information passing about the children. And Alice, I have a band with my BPD Ex. It's very difficult. I can imagine that would be. I've considered quitting, but decided to stick around because the project is very important to me. Well, and again, I understand that. So with your ex, you just have to have as firm a personal boundary as you can, And I'm sure when you're in the band and you know, whether you sing or you're playing an instrument, whatever your ex is doing, then there's that happening at the same time. But other than that, you know, again, strong boundaries of detachment. And that might mean that you don't, you know, you might say hi, but you don't say anything else, you know. So difficult to manage, but doable by just continually being aware of your boundaries and modeling them. So you're going to be friendlier and you're going to talk to other people more. And if your ex approaches, no, it's not going to be the same way. And you have to do that in a rather sort of calm way, right? Because they can be set off anyways. And Riley said, man, that is hard. Oh, yes, I know it is, Riley. It's so much easier for me to say than people to do. You said, I want so badly to be her friend and to support her. Ah, yes. I know she will struggle in her time with our daughter. No battle so far. We both agree on all terms of the split. And then you said, thank you. Thanking me for my wise words. Well, thank you for that. And you're welcome. And you know, I hear you, Riley. But you know, if you're trying to, if you try to be her friend, okay, so then that's like trying to be friends of the ex, right? And a lot of, you know, a few people have shared here that you know, what can happen in that situation is a lot of things from the relationship, the marriage, are going to come out, and you know, things can be re-adjudicated by the person with BP over and over again to like it's going to go nowhere still, if you know what I mean. And you want to support her. Well, you know, again, you need to look after yourself. And I don't know if you identify with codependency, but you need to really set boundaries around that because you want to support her in a sense, like as the mother of your child or children, but not emotional support, not enabling, not rescuing, not. It's hard, right? Because you know, when children are being co-parented and one parent has BPD, there's invariably going to be, you know, some harm to children. And the point is, by you being a solid rock of a father and a healthy role model, etc., it's really going to help. Oh, your daughter, you said, so your child. And she will struggle in her time with your daughter, and likely, depending on your daughter's age, if not yet, she's going to start struggling with her mother too. And that's where you have to be in this neutral place. I mean, not for your daughter. You have to support your daughter, validate your daughter without alienating her from her mother. But it's really important that you don't try to be too supportive and or you know, a friend to your wife when she's your ex-wife, because that's going to still block what she needs, choices she needs to make for her recovery, and it'll block your recovery. And then you need to keep things as balanced as possible and about your daughter only in the co-parenting sense, because that's going to be the best thing for your daughter as well. And Sarah, do people with BPD usually have a family member that has one too, like sibling or parents? Um, well, I can't say usually, but I would say, you know, there's a certain percentage which nobody can measure, but yes, it's not an uncommon thing for people with BPD to have a family member that has it too. Um, and and like in my case, when I had BPD, you know, my mother's BPD, NPD, my father was a dark triad. I had a grandmother with BPD, an aunt with at least a few of them, but one with obvious BPD. There was a couple of psychopaths in the family. Like there was just a whole bunch of stuff, and it was like it's not uncommon for that to happen. And I don't think it's like they haven't proven anyway that it's genetics. It's all about what really happens when people are in these really invalidating and adverse experience kind of environments, and people who are trying to parent with no skills to parent because they're still children in essence emotionally. So it's very often, and also a lot of people with codependency, not all by any means, but a lot of people have borderline mother or a narcissistic father, or one parent's narcissist or a borderline, the other parent is a rampant codependent. And then, so a lot of people with codependency, some of their woundedness comes from cluster B parents as well, or a cluster B parent. Not always, but often. And Riley, you said, "Wow, that was very insightful." Well, I hope I got to do my best here, and I'm glad that you feel that way because hopefully it will really help you. Because I know that what you're navigating right now is obviously probably it's painful and it's difficult, and you feel a lot probably for your soon to be ex-wife, and she's a mother of your child, and you want the best for your daughter, and you hope she's going to do okay, and but hey, those boundaries, and she has to start making some better choices for herself, and the hope is she will, or if she's in therapy, continue. That can take a long time. So yeah. But anyways, I won't try to say more because hopefully that was a lot for you to think about, Riley, and hopefully it's helpful because it's I have a lot of experience in this with people and clients, etc., and lived experience from way back. But I would just say I know it's easier for me to say it, but trust me, it isn't always easy to say either when it's not what people want to hear. And I know that's going to be really difficult for people to hear, but hopefully it will be helpful in the long run. Um, and you'll be able to take the action that you deem best for you and your daughter. And of course, you don't want to have full disregard for your soon to be ex wife and your daughter's mother, but you also have no control over how she's going to parent. I mean, within reason, right? I mean, if something crazy happens, yes, then you can do something about that legally, but you don't really have control over how that relationship's going to go with your daughter and your ex or soon to be ex. And so the best you can do is be that steady rock, that healthy, good dad, that healthy parent, because so your daughter, I would say, is likely at the highest risk for, hopefully only at most, codependency, because having one healthy parent can make the difference between somebody having codependency, or maybe not even that, maybe just a few issues kind of thing, versus somebody, a child of a mother with BPD ending up with BPD. So, and of course, dads are hugely important in their children's lives anyway, but I just wanted to underscore that for you. And I'm sure you love your daughter and you want to be there for her in every which way you can. And then the important thing is, too, hopefully, things are going fairly well so far. Hopefully, there won't be any parental alienation from the other side, because that often happens, not always, with people with BPD, because they feel abandoned. And then, depending on the age of your daughter, and when your daughter's with you, she's going to feel safer and more secure. It's just the nature of things. And then the more she can express how she feels different at home, that's going to cause trouble between her and her mother. And that's where you get to step in again every time when your daughter comes back, and you get to explain things to her and help her with that as she grows. So, um, yeah, it's really difficult stuff because when children are involved, it's difficult anyways, but especially when children are involved. But it would be really, I would just recommend, and you can always double check with somebody, maybe you're seeing a therapist. It's really healthiest not to try to be a friend to the ex, but just co-parent as efficiently, effectively, and as boundaried as possible. And so, yeah. Anyway, with that, I think I've said all I can say. People have shared a lot here that I think it's been helpful for each other, and hopefully will help others watching the stream back. So thank everybody for coming, and I hope that some people that came, I don't know ever who's here unless you participate, but hopefully some people listening, if you find this helpful, if you're interested in more live streams, if you're not subscribed to the channel yet, please subscribe, hit the notification bell so you'll know when I'm live streaming more. And the other thing I was just going to say, I always want to make the caveat too, that YouTube is, I guess, busier than ever, and or I don't know what else is going on. The live streams can take 10 to 16 to 20 hours to fully process. So it's available to come back and watch on the link that you have right now, so hang on to that. But it'll show up on my channel before the comments likely join it, and sometimes it happens quick, but just know it'll be up and you can come back to it. And Ronnie said, thank you again. Very helpful. Gray Rock sounds like the plan for ex-wife. I will try to be as stable as possible on my end. Oh, I'm sure you will, Riley, and I'm sure you're a really good dad. And then it's just navigating that, yes, gray rock neutral place, not really extending yourself as a friend to your ex, and putting your daughter more sort of in the number one position there, right alongside yourself, right? So, really glad if I was helpful to you in that regard, and yeah, I mean, I'm sure you're a good dad, and your daughter's going to do fairly well, and hopefully her mom is going to do a better job than many will, right? Because not everybody with BPD falls down totally in the mother role, but yeah, and kids are just well served when they have one healthy parent role model, and so, and little girls need their mom and their dad, just little boys do too, but you know, if I could have had a dad like I'm sure you are, Riley, to counterbalance my BPD NPD mom, would have changed my life back then, right? So it's yeah, I'm always just rooting for dads and their children in these situations, or if it's reversed, genders, whatever the case, because it's so. Hopefully but mothers and daughters are gonna have problems anyways. But hopefully she's gonna get through this as a parent relatively reasonably okay for your daughter. That's the hope. So yeah, everybody take care. It's been a pleasure, and like I said, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do and hit that notify bell so you get all the notifications. I try not to fill the box up with too many things, and then you'll know when I'm live streaming again. So I'll be doing many more live streams, and I'm glad I finally got this one done because I couldn't technically get it going from like 9:30 to whatever time I did start. Anyway, thank you for coming. Thank you to those who listened. I hope it was helpful. I hope it helps others. And thank you for everybody that shared your wisdom, your struggles, your experiences. And everybody take care. I just have to find my way out of here so I don't make any mistake that makes technology make it go poof. Yeah, everybody take care and just know that you're on a journey and you're learning more and more about wherever you are in your situation. And just keep having faith in yourself, or if you don't have faith in yourself and you need to get into therapy like some other people maybe on the stream or listening, make the best choice you can for yourself.